Welcome to the Dad Taskforce. If you don't recall, last week I said we're going to have something different for the holiday because Davon's out of town and we have family in town, so we're recording early. And tonight's guest is Chris. And if he wants to share his last name, he can, but the back end is that he and I started careers in law enforcement at the same time. I think you got cleared of training just as I was coming into the FTO program.
Correct.
We worked patrol. We both were canine agitators. We went to helped with the dog stuff. He was a SWAT team guy. I was a negotiator, so we partnered up quite a bit there. And then our last assignment was we were partners as juvenile detectives and school resource officers, which is why this is a unique perspective, is you've got two cops that dealt with all of the problems of kids in a community that you may never have had otherwise. So thank you for being bullied into this because
Ambush is a better word, but you're welcome.
Yeah, look, if we're going to be strategic, I knew you wouldn't have, you would have nutted up and been like, oh, I don't know what to say. And
that's still going to happen.
Yeah, sure.
It's still coming.
But so just to give some more background is if you ever find the old recruiting video that we did, and I think the city paid, I want to say $25,000 for this video. There's just like shot after shot of Chris in a windbreaker that says detective looking longingly out of a window that didn't go anywhere. It was just looking out a window. And that was supposed to compel people to come and be a part of our law enforcement team. So did you get any residuals from that? Do you still get royalties from
I did not. My agent stopped returning my calls, so I don't know if there's going to be like another follow-up video. Or
Is that because he got elected sheriff?
Yeah, I think we were just used as kind of like a Harvey Weinstein thing just to get his career to the next level.
Definitely, because I can't think of anybody else that liked to F the people below him more than that guy. And if you say it like that, I don't have to bleep it out in post. But anyways, I think it's just it's a unique opportunity to have a conversation and reminisce and talk about the stuff that we've seen. Like we were chatting at dinner, and I don't think we ever worked on the same team.
Patrol,
No, but we always worked adjacent, either opposite or adjacent. Mm-hmm. And I feel like most of the trouble I got into had to do with something that you had did or you were there.
There was a lot of trouble being had those first couple years on nights. There were some young guys and some go-getters and some aggressive supervisors that allowed that kind of shenanigans.
Sure, yeah. And just not to say that law enforcement is getting soft, but I do remember one of our last call-out events. It was a burglary in progress, and we got there last, and then the sergeant and the agent or corporal on duty were taking primary and contact, and they were just like, sir, which nothing is happening, and he's not having it. He's not going along with the program, and he tried to run back in the house, and we co-tackled him. He went high and I went low just because he's taller than I am. But it was funny because we weren't even in patrol. We just happened to be in the neighborhood, and we're like, we'll go help with that. It was a unique experience having a SWAT tactician and a negotiator as partners because we didn't really need to utilize full complements because we had a lot of different components covered.
Yeah, and I think it was great because we kind of knew our own roles, right? Like there was no pre-planning, there was no discussion. Like you start doing your thing, I kind of got my position and started doing my thing, and then kind of like you said, I don't think if we weren't there, there was not going to be any action taken.
Yeah.
Even though we had a nice opportunity there because you had someone who was previously armed, clearly mentally unstable, and the situation was never going to get more peaceful to resolve than at that moment.
Yeah, that's true.
And like I don't think anyone else there was prepared to take action.
Yeah, we teach de-escalation or I do for my full-time job, and maybe you want to as a 1099 instructor. I don't know. We haven't had the conversation, but when we talk about de-escalation, we talk about it in terms of it is everything from presence and just showing up to sometimes using lethal force. It's the prevention of further escalation, and it's a spectrum. It's not something that they can reach my pocket and like, here, take that. Now you feel better. Yeah. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't guarantee a storybook ending, but it prevents an ending that could have been worse, right?
Yeah. Do you have any capers that just stick with you, that resonate, that either good, bad, or indifferent, that just...
I mean, that's the one I always talked about in school resource officers when I'd go in and like to classrooms and be giving a talk on bike safety, and they'd ask for like a cool story. I always told that one because the evolution of it from us driving to like, because we were roof to roof for a bit. Remember that? That was the call. We were climbing on people's roofs.
No, different one.
That was a different one.
A different one. That was the 30-hour standoff that should have ended after 6.
No, there was. I thought it was that one. We were going roof to roof because that guy was running around with the blowtorch and machete, right? But no one knew where he was, and we were looking for him. And then he popped back out of his house, and we jumped. Like I think one of us or both of us jumped off the roof and then ran with the SRO van and confronted the guy in the front yard.
Oh yeah,
that was the one.
I forget all of this stuff. I do remember this.
I mean, we did all roof to roof, like movie stuff, right? Just climbing on roofs and then getting on ladders and then jumping from roofs. Like, yeah, that had a lot of cool parts to it.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
That's funny you say that because when I think of roof to roof, there was the it goes hand in hand with the complaint I got from the fire department because they said in the middle of the night we parked in the middle of a 4-lane road and blocked it. It was a burning building investigation.
Okay.
What happened was a guy had left some stuff on his oven or stove and it was smoking and it was filling the apartment. The only way to get into his apartment without breaking everything was to go into the balcony. So we started popping balconies and jumping balcony to balcony and got into his thing, and then I opened the door and Korea and I grabbed him and took him out, and Alanis turned the stove off, which then the fire department just had to ventilate the apartment, and they were mad because we got the rescue and beat them to it and parked in the premium spots.
Yeah.
And so they complained.
That was great because I think even after Alanis turned the stove off, he got the hose from like the back. Because I thought I have it on Mav, where he was...
Which is mobile audio video.
Where he was using the hose and putting out the remainder of or wetting things down or doing something like that. And yeah. I mean, that's so the best part of the call. If you can ruin...
Fire department's day.
Take the glory from the fire department.
That's my favorite thing. Is to always like... And look, this whole rivalry with cops and firefighters exists because we're already in the street doing work and they have to wake up. Or turn their own stove off because they don't want to burn the beans they bought at the grocery store an hour earlier.
Yeah. I mean, we're all just jealous. We just picked the wrong path.
Yeah. No. I will not accept that.
Every fireman I knew had a side job, a boat, they were living a good life. They were always on spring break, it felt like.
Yeah, sure. So statistically speaking though, they do everything they're supposed to do as far as after action reviews and debriefings and defusings. But then they also work less because they have all these extra, they work 4 days a month. They make a lot of money. Yet most of them the numbers are marginally different between cops and firefighters that have significant PTSD or suicidal ideation.
The numbers are not significant?
Marginally different.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's so I don't know what it's a mindset of the occupation.
Yeah. Oh, I mean that would probably carry over to the military as well. Like the people that go into the different MOSs have different results from experiencing trauma.
Yes, right? That's true.
Makes sense.
Do you remember? Man, I sometimes like to talk. Do you remember I think we were in the SRO patrol whip, and there was 3,000. They had the active stabbing in progress where the guy was running through the industrial complex.
Yes.
And we were going like code 3, lights and sirens, like all of the Hollywood cops do. And we caught some super heavy traffic. Do you remember what else we caught in that traffic?
Mm-mm.
The supervisor, no lights, no sirens, sitting there in the slow lane trying not to get there first.
Not the first time I have passed another cop going to a code 3 emergency.
And like, by you, we're talking of somebody is actively being like with a knife stabbing people in an office room. Just like,
I remember on the way to that call, it's like, this is it. This is like the big one that we train for, that we talk about. Like,
this is the big one. We're like, and he's like, did they see me? And then they had the balls to put the bad guy in the back of our car as if I was going to transport. It's like, I've got children to go babysit. I'm not doing that. My kids. That was the end of the day. So I'm not sure what you're going to say. As working at a high school, so we had a couple high schools, a handful of middle schools, and then just a whole boatload of elementary schools. But the high schools tend to have different problems than the middle schools, where the middle schoolers tend to have more like behavioral issues. But as it relates to the high school, the one in the south end of town specifically, what was the biggest problem? Like, that was, I would say, administrative problem.
The from the school's administration standpoint, or from our standpoint?
From us. Administratively, what was an issue? Not a child issue, but just like...
If I think what you're insinuating is we were not necessarily welcomed as team members to the rest of the team.
That's what I was thinking of.
Okay.
So they had personnel that outfitted a golf cart with lights and sirens, and they were security officers that wanted to be cops.
Yeah.
And how many times did we get calls that they were chasing kids around trying to get them back into class, and then the kids would leave campus and start popping fences, and they went from being truant to being a prowler.
Yeah, I mean, full on zero legal authority in foot pursuits. Yeah, totally forgot about that.
And with their little stupid golf cart, wee woo, wee woo, wee woo. Yeah, and you're just like, what are you doing?
I feel like that was like part of like a Paul Blart movie where like they would just do things and be like, where did you get this idea? Why do you think that this is okay? Like, your job is to kind of make sure that people don't double park in the parking lot.
Or call in if an incident occurs. Observe and report, sir. Observe and report.
Get security camera footage for us when we come.
We got hired as SROs mid-year in 2017 because the two guys before us, one retired and the other one was set up for failure.
Yes.
And he's like, I don't want this smoke.
But the one that was set up for failure, the one that didn't retire, he was always coming absentee. Like, even though there was two people on that team, it was a one-man show.
Yes. At the time, we had a huge gang problem. And by a huge gang problem, I mean like 8 middle schoolers that were doing some wild stuff.
They thought they ran that town, though.
They thought they did. But we're talking stolen guns, shooting the stolen guns, vandalism, extortion, burglary, trying to get it was just wild stuff that we were talking about. And they said, this is your task. Go out and find the stolen gun, go out and find the everything. And we eventually did. It wasn't us that picked the gun up, but it was the kid we thought who had it. They found him laying at his house, hiding with it underneath him. But we're talking about 12, 13, and 14-year-olds, right? 12, 13, and 14-year-olds that are breaking into houses. They're stealing firearms. They are committing major felonies. They're acting as a criminal enterprise, meeting all the criteria of the gang. They had insignia. They had masks. They had monikers. They had names. And they were branding themselves across town. They thought they were just like Billy badasses. And there's a couple of breaks. And one was they went too far with one of the victims, and they stole another victim's cat. And the fact that they stole that cat, she snitched on everybody and gave us everything we needed to
That's right.
Put the kibosh on it.
'Cause she was a girlfriend of one of the.
Yep. And the second they stole her cat, it all went downhill.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring these kids up, because each of these kids had something similar in their life, their existence. They all shared one quality: fatherlessness. None of them had a dad except for one.
The blonde kid?
The blonde kid. And the blonde kid's dad was just working and never there. And he's like, "Don't you do that.
Yeah.
Here's the car keys."
Yeah, I remember him being very not police friendly, but also not supportive of us. Like kind of clearly enabled his son.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. I remember when we walked in to serve this search warrant, he was getting on like a PJ with his boys to go to Vegas, and mom calls him, and that ruined his trip. And that's what made him mad. He said he had to come home off of his PJ and come back up because his kid was getting arrested and the cops were searching the house.
That's right.
So the whole point of the Dad Task Force is very simple. It's equipped men equipping other men, because the number one predictive indicator of crime, violence, substance abuse, self-harm, drug and alcohol use, gang violence, all of the things that we look at on TV and go, "My gosh, I hope that never happens in my house." The number one predictive indicator of that is fatherlessness. Now, for some, that's just some guys out there spreading a seed and not tending to his garden, which is a lot of it. And the other half is they live in the same house with a guy that pays their bills, but they don't know each other. So both of those things existed with these kids.
Yeah, I don't recall a lot of their familial relationships, but I remember dealing with the moms for all of them.
And the moms all came to the parenting classes that we were teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been court ordered, I don't recall. But dads were never there.
In fact, in all of Parent Project, I only remember a couple dads, and there were a couple. There was the one that you loved, the old fat white guy who said, "Why am I here?" his first night, as he cut a check for the program. And then because his kid his exchange student had the bike stolen, and was convinced it was a minority that stole the kid's bike. Mm-hmm.
Without evidence, he just was making that assumption.
Yeah, that's right.
He was a pill. I'll tell you. I don't know if you remember his name. I'll tell you.
Was that the one that brought that would eat all the candy?
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll tell you his name off camera. Then you have the mom and dad that were divorced.
But mom was like mostly caretaker, right?
Mostly,
like 100% custody.
But dad would on his weekends. Daughter would throw parties at his house because he was with his girlfriend somewhere else. And then they were talking about how they give their kid marijuana because it was prescribed by their physician. And then the church mom went off and just was flipping tables, talking about, I don't know if you remember that one. She was like, "How dare you? What is the matter with you?"
Oh, I do remember that.
And then there was the parenting expert who every time Chris had to talk to him, He's like, I've written a book about how to be a good parent. I don't need.
Mm-hmm.
You remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we face that a lot. You have people that
I gotta bleep that out. It's fine.
How do they not know where you're from?
I don't know. Because people are lazy, they don't Google.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we faced that a lot in the town we worked in that shall remain nameless. That you had people that had a lot of intellectual capacity and a lot of formal education, but very little common sense or ability to apply it.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
And it's weird, surprising how often that happened with parenting. Because then you also had the dichotomy of kids that came from the wrong side of the tracks, so to speak, and how different they parented with no money, no education, but a different kind of involvement, we'll call it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. Like, so the socioeconomics position of these things changes so much in styles and parenting. Like, I think I'm not going to say that because I don't have the numbers to back that up. I hypothesize that the more hey dads, look, I know you're tired, I know you're exhausted, you've been working your ass off all day, and you come home and you just want to sit down, put your feet up on the coffee table, and have your wife, partner, whatever, bring you something to eat and drink and turn on your favorite show. But guess what? That's not good enough. Just because you're tired doesn't mean that your kids don't need some time and attention. At thetacticaltalker.com, you can enroll in DadComm, 21 days to a better relationship with your kid in 5 to 10 minutes a day plus a daily challenge. What you do is you build the same skill set that you would if you were a police hostage negotiator to communicate with your kids and build the kind of relationship where they share information with you. And right now, through the holidays, you get 10% off the total cost with the promo code EQUIPPED. If you're not much for wanting to watch a program, you can go online and find www.amazon. Don't know if you've heard of it or not, but it's like this online shopping store. You can find the book there. It's a daily journal that also gives you the opportunity to journal and keep track of your progress. That's thetacticaltalker.com. Promo code EQUIPPED. Today's episode is also brought to you by StreamKits. That's StreamKitz.com, where you get high-end, high-quality production-level cameras at a fraction of the cost. Today, we were out at a ranch doing some work with a local rancher trying to build their story up to put out, and more information on that coming up. But having these StreamKits cameras, the IRL program, where I can take my tablet, I can see what I'm shooting and film everything with right there, is so easy. It's in high definition, and it makes my job as an editor that much cleaner because it's all there, and I can see what it's going to look like on screen. If you go to StreamKits.com, you can find whatever package you want. 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras with audio, without audio, your choice. But with promo code Taskforce15, you get 15% off MSRP at checkout, which would put your costs at, I don't know, a couple of cups of coffee at Starbucks. What are you waiting on? Get out there and make it happen. Affluent a family is, the more hands-off or gentle parenting that they take.
Yeah, I think they definitely have the harder time with difficult children.
Yes.
With rebellious or stubborn children, they had a harder time with it. Whereas I feel like the other side of the coin either used force, overbearing, or like guilt and shame to try to rectify the behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, like, the thing is, just to be clear, it's also a problem in the schools itself. It's not just parents. Like, so you send your kid to the school, and the schools are predominantly a lady-led organization. So there's a lot of nurturing, but there's not a lot of guidance, especially for young boys. And there's not a lot of guidance for young girls, because especially if the father's not in that role, filling that guiding role. Like, we have such different focuses and jobs, men and women, as it relates to families. And we used to have to teach like active shooter response to the schools as part of our contract. And we were laughing about this because there's one incident that stands out. And we talk about fatherlessness being a predictive indicator. And it's not saying that if you don't have a dad, you're going to be an active shooter. What we're saying is if you don't have a counterbalance to the female role model in the household, that there is a hole that is going to be filled with other stuff, a sense of belonging, a sex, drugs, and rock and roll, or whatever, however you want to say that. And it was cited and citable research, and this teacher went off. How dare you say that my kid's gonna kill people at a school?
Yeah, she took it as a direct personal attack.
It's like, I don't know you. Like, why would you say that? Oh, I'm going through a divorce. Okay. Is your husband or ex-husband going to be involved? Because if that's the case, then your kid's fine. If not, maybe put him in a club.
Yeah, that education you can use is like, all right, there's something we need to address here.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Just don't let your kid flounder. That's the whole point. Anyways, the city that shall not be named
again
got an email from her talking about how we were using religious rhetoric because the cited source was pewresearch.org. Look, I get it. Churches have pews. But a pew is just where people sit. Pew Research is a global think tank that is nonpartisan, that does research on these kind of things and publishes studies that's citable for research papers and lectures and whatnot. The lieutenant, who shall remain nameless, unless you listen to a different podcast that we were on, said, "How dare you? You should never cite church. You know what? I don't like your presentation. Send it to me." So we did, and then we got our hands slapped, and it went from why active shooters happen in a school, what you can do to get in front of the incident, and moved into just tell them to run, hide, or fight, and then answer questions and leave. Super effective policing, if you ask me.
Which, when we talk about at the beginning of the conversation, de-escalation, every one of the school shooters had red flags that came up, right?
Yep.
There were opportunities to mediate or prevent. And so you think that would be the first step of de-escalation, is preventing the incident in the first place.
Yep.
So it boggles your mind that people weren't interested in that because feelings were hurt.
It's just easier to make people feel better about a bad situation than it is to actually prevent the bad situation from happening in the first place. We always talk about preventative policing, which requires proactivity. It requires positive relationships with the community. It requires men and women in law enforcement to get their ass out of the car and actually talk to people in their beat and understand who's in their beat. That's preventative policing. Because if the cop that rolls through my neighborhood gets out every time he sees me, he's like, "Hey, man, what's going on? Is there anything that I should know about? Any problems that you're having?" And then I'm like, "Yeah, this happens every Wednesday night. When we put the trash cans out, that this one car comes through here and kicks all the trash cans over. The next morning we all have to." So now he knows there's a problem, and he positions himself in a way to prevent it from happening and solve the problem, because he's having a real relationship with the community. It's not coffee with the cop, or you're getting out there and somebody's mandated to go sit and have coffee and talk to people. And the people that show up, those things are great. It's a great opportunity to learn and build relationships, but it's pushing the patrol car around and getting out of it and having a relationship with your beat, having beat knowledge that really solves problems.
Mm-hmm.
It reinstills trust into law enforcement. It creates a legitimacy for the industry. And we've gotten so far away from that just with soft politics and letting feelings drive decision-making instead of objectivity, because justice is supposed to be blind. It's supposed to be fairly and equally applied because it's blind. Not, I'm giving you different treatment because you're blind.
Yeah. And how often, so people have their preconceived notions, and there's things that they have heard, there's things that other people have told them, but when they have an honest, genuine opportunity to talk to a police officer, I mean, how often those conversations turn into a bunch of other things. Hey, while I have you here, my uncle's going through this. Is this legal? Is this not legal? And, I saw this the other day. What should I do about this? And it just opened the door to so many other layers of things that never would have happened. And then you have that, the ripple in the pond effect from that interaction.
I'm sure this happened to you. Like, they gave us department cell phones, right? And so that's on your card. You hand your card out, and all of a sudden your voicemail forwards to your department cell phone, and you go and you do like a fraud investigation for elder abuse because you've got a dying patriarch or matriarch, and the kids are fighting and squabbling over money, and then one takes advantage of the situation and cuts the rest out, right? Mm-hmm. That happens all the time. And what ended up happening in this situation is this was very early on in my career, but myself and my team, we all went to a gang class. And in the middle of it, my phone starts ringing because they're wanting advice on how to deal with the other family members since their dad passed. Like, how do I deal with them? Like, I don't know. I'm 27 years old. I've never been in this situation before. You have more life experience than me, but that's what the police do. They provide services. They're objective. The brain operates in a survival mode and a logic and reasoning mode, and as long as your amygdala isn't triggered, that fight, flight, freeze response allows you to make reasonable decisions. The second that you feel threatened, that changes. And so police are supposed to maintain that objectivity because they're not actively and emotionally involved in these situations. And I don't know. It's hard to say that the industry's dead. I know that it feels that way. You had a lot of people leave, a lot of good experience leave, a lot of inexperience get promoted. And it creates a problem just like it does in the military. You get bad leadership that's there because all the good people left because of bad leadership. Mm-hmm. So, Madam Producer, where are we at on time? There should be a red bar. 30? What do you think was your best assignment?
Best is different depending on how you want to quantify it. If I'm going to go with best as being most meaningful, it was school resource officer.
Okay.
Do you want me to elaborate or you have a follow-up?
Yes, but just can you run through your other assignments so that people aren't thinking, well, this guy only had one assignment.
Okay. Canine agitator, defensive tactics instructor, taser instructor, less lethal instructor, rifle instructor, firearms instructor, pistol instructor, SWAT team, sniper, agitator for the canine program, patrol, field training officer. I think that was it.
And juvenile detective.
And juvenile detective, school resource officer.
Okay. And so your most meaningful one, those are mostly inward facing with the exception of field training officer, SWAT sniper, and SRO, juvenile detective. So why was the SRO position the most meaningful?
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed field training officer as well, but it's a small glimpse into somebody's career, and you give your 2 cents and you train someone as best you can. Maybe your recommendations are heeded by the leadership, maybe they're not. Whereas as a school resource officer, we had so much independence and freedom to do the job how we saw fit, and I think universally people agreed that we had taken that position to something that wasn't ever before us, which was awesome. You had the opportunity, so it was extremely challenging, which I thrive on, solving problems and meeting challenges. It was meaningful, hard to quantify how meaningful, because you never know what difference you're making in somebody's lives. But you could tell on a daily basis, like kids are full of emotions, and you could see this on their face, that like whatever conversation you were having, it was having an impact on them.
Yeah.
And you got a chance to like build these relationships. And you couldn't do that in really any other, on patrol, you can make a couple relationships with a couple business owners or a couple like, homeless people that you see all the time, and you build a relationship with them. But it was nothing was to the extent as a school resource officer. So I feel like everything was just like turned up.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely correct in that regard, and because you have the time to do it. You have the time to invest into these relationships, whereas like in patrol, and there's somebody that we both know that felt that there should have been a better relationship between him and the person he was trying to build the relationship with, but recognizing that in a moment of crisis, a person doesn't see you. They see chaos, and they just know somebody was there. And, it's tough. A lot of people in this industry get this savior complex, and they feel like, I saved a life. We're friends now. No, you're not. Like, I delivered a baby, and I didn't get a card, a thank you or anything afterwards. It was a blurb in the paper. Like, it's a fraction of time in somebody else's life that you're present for. But in the SRO, you're there all the time.
Yeah.
What was your favorite position? Not meaningful, but just favorite.
I think probably being a defensive tactics instructor, because I felt like I had a pretty good mastery on the material. And one thing I was proud of, that really getting into like the mindset of using force or using your tools, as opposed to just like, all right, point the taser at the cardboard cutout and pull the trigger. It was like, okay, cool. All these things are all going on at the same time. Give me your radio traffic. What do you do? Tell me about the policy. Is this legal? Is this not legal, and why? And like, I felt like that would help people translate to performance in the field versus just like going through the motions. And we saw that a lot on the range too, is people just want to hit the bullseye.
Producer's asleep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm listening.
People on the range just want to hit the bullseye, but don't think of like, all right, what's the cognitive load and the stimulus you have to pull the trigger in the field.
Yeah.
And knowing sure that you're within policy and the law when you do so. So I enjoyed that position quite a bit.
Cool. So we are at that point in the show where we're going to wrap things up, but we like to give a weekly commendation. Somebody in your life that was a cornerstone in your development and becoming a man, somebody that's inspired you. It could be somebody an author, a philosopher, anybody that has given you perspective into who you want to be or who you became.
That could be a big list. I'm going to go ahead and give that out to Jake Clark. He was the founder of Save a Warrior.
So talk a little bit about Save a Warrior, because I think that's an important program.
So Save a Warrior is a program that I was blessed to be part of. It is for first responders and veterans who are dealing with PTS, as they refer to it as. It's an extremely well-run organization, and their statistics for helping people in need are phenomenal. And I thank you, because you showed it to me, or you referred me to that. I was looking for help, and you were the one that gave me Save a Warrior. So I actually owe that thanks to you as well. It's there's a lot of people trying to fight for like mental health for veterans, and a lot of people are meaning well but don't have the right program. And these guys, their numbers speak for themselves. Their ability to change people's lives, and then the families of those, those veterans, that they change their lives. And I am continuing to be part of that program by helping out with some of the group stuff and staying in contact with the leaders, because it's an ongoing thing. It's ongoing education. It's staying, as they call it, like you're leaning into doing the work. And it's just, I can't speak highly enough about that program. And so if you know anyone that would like to learn more about it, on their website, I'm open to contact. Anyone that, because you can just call them and have a conversation. So if you need help, great. If you know someone needs help, great. Just give them a call. They'll have just a normal conversation, and they're very honest and transparent about what they can do for you. And it's can't speak enough about the program.
I will have all of the contact information for Save a Warrior, website, phone number if applicable, and I'll put it in the show notes. So if you want to or need somebody, pass them off. It'll be right there. Did you say that they could contact you?
Yeah.
How would they do that?
Whatever information you want to provide them, I'll give them I'll give an email. Phone number's fine too.
Don't do that.
Okay, then just email.
You want to give your email? Okay. I don't know what your email is.
Yeah.
I text you. I don't need you.
I didn't know if this is all stuff that goes in the show notes. This is not my work.
This doesn't go in the show notes because a lot of people listen to it. It's mostly listen to, don't watch.
So the email I'll use is cmoore, that's CMOORE 04 at CMC, like Charles Mary Charles, .edu.
That's Seymour and Be Young. We'll see you next time.